Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Distance Learning for Band. We are very excited to provide you guys with some opportunities to keep you guys playing, to keep you involved musically. So I'm really excited to kind of start the enrichment activity we kind of have planned for this week and the next couple of weeks. So it's been a really fun process looking at things to help you guys, number one, keep your chops fresh. One thing I do want to say is do not be concerned about the beard. It's in its growing stages, so please don't make any jokes or anything. I mean, you can. I'm not going to hear you or anything, but it's a work in progress. So don't be alarmed. Don't adjust the settings on your screen. Everything is okay. There is a beard starting here. Okay. So one thing we're looking at is for your enrichment activity, we wanted to find something that was challenging, but at the same time not something you guys are going to stress about, but also something you can kind of show others in your household, or things to keep the boredom level with this quarantine, kind of keep that level down just a little bit. So one thing we're looking at is, if you will turn to page 23 in your Essential Elements book, if you have it. Okay, and this is just a reminder, this is for students that have their instruments at your house. You have a musical instrument, your instrument you use in band, of course. You guys have it. If you do not have an instrument, you're certainly welcome to follow along if you have your band book. Not anything that's going to be, not beneficial to you if you don't have your instrument. If you have your book, by all means, please follow along. But we do have assignments for those that do not have anything on Canvas. If you don't have your band binder or your instrument or anything like that, feel free to go back to Canvas, and we have a different enrichment activity for you. So one thing we're going to look at as I screencast this is I'm going to pull up page 23, number 118. In everybody's book, for bells, this is percussion if you have your bell kit at home. The snare drum etude is a little bit different than this. It's a completely different exercise, so please make sure that you have your bells with you at the house. Okay. So looking at page 23, number 118, this pretty much takes up the whole page in your book. Okay, there is at the bottom of the page, for most folks, there is a piano accompaniment. That is not what you should be looking at. It should be the one at the very top. It has just the single lines, as you guys can see here. And as we look at this is called Theme from New World Symphony by a composer named Antonin Dvorak. Okay, I don't know if I have his first name right, but his last name is Dvorak. As you can see, the little pronunciation marking over there, over the A. He is from the Czech Republic. He was a composer during what's known as the kind of Romantic period, which was in the 19th century, from about 1830 to almost 1900 is typically kind of the overlapping time period there. So one thing we're looking at here is this week we are focusing on measures 5 to 13. Again, that's measures 5 to 13. So we're starting here, and we're going to stop pretty much right this measure right here. We're not going to go on. Next week we will look at 13 to 21, but this week we're focusing on pretty much the first 8 measures. So as you look through here, not any challenging ranges or anything of that nature. We do have a lot of kind of phrase markings, as you can see here with our slurs. Pretty much every measure there is some type of slur throughout these 8 measures here, minus the last measure right in there with no slur. Okay, so one thing we want to focus with this is, if you notice our tempo in our 4 measures of rest beforehand, it says largo. And largo is a tempo that is kind of meant to be a large, slow, almost not really grandiose or, very loud or anything like that, but it's just a nice, comfortable speed. And what we're going to recommend here is a metronome marking of BPM, or beats per measure, of 72. So if you're wondering what that sounds like, I highly recommend you use a metronome. I'm going to be using one as I play some examples for you through this. A metronome with a subdivision click that you're hearing, hopefully right here, is a really good thing to have. But if you don't have that, all you simply can do is Google metronome. And there is a number of things that you can do. Just literally Googling metronome. And Google offers a simple free metronome here. You can slide your cursor down to 72. It does not give you a subdivision, but it does just give you a nice steady click. So that is an option for folks to use if you want to do that. Okay. Pulling this back up here. Sorry for the wait. Here we go. Sorry about that. We're in the key signature of concert B flat. Okay, so it's a very, very comfortable key signature for us. And looking at this first measure here, it gives us a lot of just useful information. We are starting out piano, so soft, not too loud. Okay, and as we go through here, we're seeing a lot of dotted quarter notes. We also see some dotted half notes here in measure 4 and measure 12. So we do have a lot of dotted notes in there. So remember, a dotted half note, of course, receives 1.5 beats. And just to remember a real quick crash course of stuff, a dot next to a note adds half the value of the note the dot is connected to. Okay, so if we have a half note, it's worth 2 beats in 4/4 time. That dot adds half of the value of a half note, which would be a quarter note or 1 beat, making it a total of 3. Okay, so a dotted quarter note, half of the value of a quarter note is an eighth note. So essentially, we're adding an eighth note to a quarter note. So that gives us a total of 1.5 beats. Okay. So as we're kind of counting through this, we're subdividing in our head 1 and 2 and in our head there. Okay. So as we go through this, I'm going to play just the first 2 measures. Okay. On my trumpet here, I only have my trumpet. Unfortunately, I'm unable to get into the building to get any different instruments. But I'm hoping to get a trombone, hopefully for this, to kind of help with things. But we're going to hear probably a lot of trumpet today and probably the next few weeks. Okay, I will be giving tips for every instrument just to make sure that we're all aware of things here. Now, starting at measure 5, it's nice and soft. It's not too loud. And I'll just play the first 2 measures to kind of give you an idea of how this should sound. Okay, so again, utilizing that metronome, always making sure that we're playing in strict time, and that's just a good tempo to have there. So as you notice, as I play, I'm not playing super loud, I'm playing piano, and I'm making everything as smooth as possible. So we want to utilize a legato style. And everybody right now, just humor me a little bit. 2 words to describe legato are... Good. Hopefully you said smooth and connected. And I apologize for my handwriting. Using a stylus kind of is crazy today. So that legato, smooth and connected style. And we want to make every attack or every kind of articulation nice and smooth, unless we have our slur markings here, okay? Always utilizing our slur markings. So, as I erase this, I want to talk about just a few things. The big things we're focusing on today, I fully believe everybody in here can play all the notes on the page, playing with the slurs, play the rhythms correctly, play the correct notes. That's not going to be a problem. What is going to be challenging about this is keeping good phrasing. And phrasing, of course, can be just kind of defined as this: when and where we should breathe and where we shouldn't breathe. Now, a lot of you in the band setting, you can hide. You can hide inside the band, and if you take a breath, most of the time nobody's going to notice. Okay, with this being a solo, or a really fancy term called etude, which I'll come back to in just a second. Etude. We'll come back to that term in just a second and what that means. And what we're trying to achieve here is really, really good phrasing. Okay, so if I play these first four measures, most of the time young musicians are going to do this with their breathing or their phrasing. Now, for most people, that doesn't sound too bad, but if you noticed from this measure right in here, I did what? If you said breathed, you're correct. Okay, I did breathe there. And kind of what it does is it doesn't give the piece a lot of connected connection. Excuse me, I said connected, but connection. It doesn't really connect things together. It seems very, very disjumbled. I kind of like to use this analogy. It's kind of like Jenga. You know, you have all these blocks stacked together, and when you first start to play Jenga and you pull the block out, you know, the blocks all look fairly similar, but as soon as you start to take things out, it looks really disconnected and the whole thing can fall over. So what we want to do is we want to keep a nice connected sound and always make sure that we breathe. Usually, unless the music gives us a breath mark or a comma, you're going to breathe in these rests right here. And at these slower tempos, that works fine. And I'm doing a metronome marking of 72 just because it's not too fast. It's also not too slow. The slower you go, the more you have to manage your air. So this is a nice, good tempo to start with. If it were me playing this for a performance, I would probably bump this down to probably like 60 beats per measure, which sounds much slower than before. But that is certainly something that can always be adjusted later. I would never do this faster. So if you're thinking like, I'm going to fly through this and go, I don't know, 160 beats per measure or 160 beats per minute, that's just way too fast for this. So we want to keep this nice connected style here. So how we can make this connected is by not breathing here. We want to make sure that we keep things very connected, and that's what we're trying to achieve here. This piece is studying our phrasing. If you ask me, what is this piece trying to teach students, or what is this trying to improve, and it comes down to phrasing and style. So, which brings me back to this word etude. Okay, an etude is just simply a musical study. Okay. A musical study, or a piece meant to improve upon a certain aspect of playing, okay, or certain aspects. It's not just limited to one, but you know, more advanced stuff, you usually cover more than one concept here, okay. So what we're trying to do here is work on phrasing and style, okay. So I'm going to play that first phrase now correctly, okay. So that first phrase is much more smooth, much more musical. It also does not have as much kind of disconnection in it, okay? So make sure that you're always pushing through every like second measure of a phrase. Unless there's a breath mark or a rest written, always make sure that you're pushing through to the next note, okay? Now, looking at phrasing. We've discussed that in length. Let's talk about dynamics. We don't have a whole lot of dynamics written. So one thing that we can do is make our own dynamics. And one thing I like to do, we've practiced this a few times in band, but we want to kind of make this nice phrase kind of like a wave or a series of waves. Okay, and we want to swell just a little bit. And one of the easiest things to do to kind of give music life is to add dynamics. Okay, and a lot of times they're written, as you can see later in the piece. Down here, we have a few like crescendos. Okay, and there's things that we can do with that without having to follow just the music. So what I want you to do here is take your pencil, and I want you to write just a quick swell. And what this means is we're going to crescendo this measure. And then the next measure, we're going to decrescendo. Okay? And that's going to create a little bit of life in what we're doing. It's going to bring the music from just notes on a page to truly a musical expression. So, here's now the adjusted phrase, these first two measures. Okay, I'll do that one more time just to demonstrate. Okay, and it just seems so simple to add those few things right there. So also what we want to do is kind of do the similar thing in measures 7 and 8 right here. We're going to add a crescendo, and we're going to add a decrescendo into that rest. Okay, let's do the whole phrase this time. Let's listen to this. I'm going to do that one more time. I had that slight mishap in the last measure there, so I'm going to do it right for you this time. We won't have any mistakes. Okay, and really kind of focus your dynamics going in, kind of fading away into that rest. Okay, if the note cuts off on you like mine did just a little bit, that's absolutely fine. Don't try to adjust it, just kind of ease into that rest right in there. Now we're going to follow the same kind of rules for the next phrase. Now the next phrase measures 9 to 13. Okay, we're going to follow very similar things here. Okay, first two measures, measures 9 and 10, are exactly the same as measures 5 and 6. Where it changes a little bit is measures 11 and 12. Okay, we have different rhythms here. We have very similar rhythm, beats 3 and 4. Beats 1 and 2, we have just some straight quarter notes there. But please make sure that we're paying attention to the slurs and where we articulate. But we do have the same rhythmic dotted half note in measure 12 as we did in measure 8. Just a different note there. Okay, so we're going to follow the same kind of rules here. And follow our decrescendos in here. Okay. One more time. So a lot of good music here, a lot of good things we can focus on. As you work towards this, work towards slowing it down a little bit. I'm going to slow this down maybe about 8 clicks now. Okay, and I'll do all of these phrases in here. I'll do all from measure 5 to measure 13. And then working even slower if you wanted to, down to about 60 beats a minute. So we're always working to make this very, very musical. All right, so we're kind of reached the end of our enrichment lesson today. What I want you to do is practice this, practice it, make it as very musical as possible. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. If you need some help, please, like I said, email me. And we do have this Google Meet video chat for one-on-one instruction. If you guys need any help, please feel free to shoot me an email, and I will do my best to kind of set that up to where you guys, to kind of give you some one-on-one instruction if you need it. Okay. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I'm really super excited that we have this technology where we can kind of share musical instruction. I know we wish we could be in the band room. We wish we could be working on our concert music. But unfortunately life, kind of doesn't work out the way we all plan sometimes. So if you're feeling discouraged, please know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I want to also say how much I just miss everybody. And one thing I really am looking forward to is seeing you guys again next year to continue the musical side of things and, to keep things going. One thing that you can do to make sure that you are ready is if you have your instrument, practice daily. Use that as a way to escape the boredom. Okay, you don't need me to find things to work on. If you have your essential elements book, there's plenty of things you could work on in that. You got the scale sheet, you've got the chromatic scales, you've got your fingering chart in the back of your book. There's so many things you can do to kind of number one, get better at your instrument. Number two, break the boredom from quarantine, which I know we're all struggling with, so please use this time to get better, and like I said, shoot me an email if you have any questions or any concerns, or if you need help. We can definitely find a way to make things better. Okay, signing off right now. Thank you guys again. I hope you have a great week. If you're doing any credit recovery stuff, please make sure that you're communicating with your teachers, and please make sure that you're utilizing this time wisely. One thing, make sure we're not sitting in front of the Xbox or the PlayStation or the computer screen. If you can, get up, move around. Occasionally poke your head outside. Some sunlight's good for you, but just make sure that you guys are staying safe. Miss you all. Hope to see you guys soon.